Good evening, and welcome to Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones. And today, we have a very exciting guest. His name is Stefen Deleveaux. He is the president of the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. And so happy to have you here today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And so today, we'll be talking about all things blockchain, cryptocurrency, and we'll see what the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance has been up to. And so just kicking things off, though, Stefen, tell me, how did you even end up in this line of work, or this role, so to speak?
It's kind of a long story, but I'll keep it to bullet points. So basically, starting from college, my background is economics.
Okay.
So I learned a lot about ecosystems, like structures of how things work. So that kind of primed me for a lot of things.
Something we have in common.
Exactly. And then I guess a few years after college, I kind of fell into the kind of technology sphere, mainly through friends and following different companies and things like that. And then a few friends and I started the Shift the Culture community group, which is mostly about startups and entrepreneurship and technology. So, and mainly, Travis Miller was the head of that. So mainly through him and through other people in that group, I kind of fell more in love with technology in general. So the two basically started to combine, and I was working in finance at the time, in banking. So I started falling in love with fintech, financial technology. So that kind of went into, okay, what can we do with this? How can the Bahamas benefit from this? And I realized the problem was that there was still, fintech still didn't really work for us in a lot of ways where, if you look at what people in the US are using, like Venmo, Cash App, things like that, we can't use that here.
Right.
Stripe doesn't work here. So all these different problems with fintech, as I saw it, I was like, okay, how do we kind of go past that? And then in addition to that, they're still, they're supposed to be different from traditional finance, but they're still kind of attached to the traditional financial system. So with those issues, I said, okay, what can we do to actually make things work down here? And I couldn't figure it out. And then it was, I think, a few years later, I found blockchain technology. Like I'd heard of Bitcoin and stuff like that. I didn't really pay attention.
Right.
But then I understood I started looking into the technology itself, like how it worked, how, blockchain as a digital ecosystem, a digital infrastructure could be revolutionary really especially for small countries. And I realized, okay, this is actually what I thought fintech would be. This is a whole evolution of that into I call it econ tech, because there's actual economies on top of these technologies, right?
Indeed.
So for me, I just fell in love with it, and I just started seeing researching and exploring more and more, and I just really wanted to understand it and see how we could use it here. And then, but it was still very abstract. It was still a lot of tech nerds and stuff like that were really pushing things, and I still wasn't sure how to enter. And then I found out about Bit in Barbados, which was the first blockchain company in the region, and I was like, oh wait, people in the Caribbean actually, doing this and actually pushing into this. So I was like, okay, I could get into this too. So I reached out to them. I reached out to other people in the region who were at least interested in the space, at least interested in the tech, and we started forming a little community. And that kind of evolved over time into the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. So this started maybe mid to end of 2016, and we were pretty much focused on the technology side of it, and that kind of expanded into an actual organization with actual mandates, mainly focused on education and public policy.
Right.
So, over those years, we've done, a number of different initiatives and just meetups and stuff like that, webinars, all these kind of different things. We've had a few hackathons. We partner with other organizations as well. And then it's just been kind of this really cool ecosystem of people in the Caribbean and especially in the Bahamas who are trying to understand more and more how this actually works.
Understood.
So it's been a fun ride for sure.
Fantastic. So it started to develop more organically originally.
Definitely.
And then, of course, you had to start formalizing some things, right, when you got serious. So in terms of how are you organizing yourselves, how are you structured, and what are your main objectives as an organization?
Yeah. So it's a nonprofit. I don't really make any money from this. It's just something I was really passionate about and wanted to see happen, because I do genuinely believe that this technology can be, in its multiple forms, because there are different forms of it, and it looks like different things to different people, but I think there are a lot of different ways that it can benefit us. So yeah, we're structured as a nonprofit. We have again, we have mandates. Like the main one is education, which has always been the focus. We've done a lot of different experiments, a lot of different initiatives just to see what works, and we're still figuring out, to be honest.
Right.
And then to a smaller degree, public policy, just in terms of, the Bahamas, for example, is embracing the space in a lot of different ways. And there's always the question of what more we can do. And then at the same time, the wider Caribbean, we're all part of this region. We all need to make sure that we're coming together to actually help each other out and to actually embrace this technology in different ways. Because that could actually be a way that we don't need to worry too much about, larger countries. We can kind of just rise organically as a group and as a unit using this technology. So
Right.
it's all these different things that are focuses really, and that can also branch out into startup advisory kind of stuff. But but the main two are definitely education and public policy.
Right. So let's just focus on education for a minute.
For sure.
Right. And so, considering that's your main primary mandate, what type of modalities are you utilizing to? You mentioned webinars.
Right.
And what would you have planned into the future in terms of perhaps collaborations with any universities or schools,
Right.
that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean that changes monthly basically. So we kind of we're still experimenting with different forms. What we did for a while was monthly webinars, or regular webinars with people who are in the space. Some within the Caribbean, some outside. So the largest one we had was the Commissioner Peirce from the SEC, from the US SEC. That was a really good one. And then outside of that, even before that, we partnered with the IDB to do a hackathon for software developers. There was maybe about 25 that did the course, and then 15 that did the hackathon itself. And I mean, that was excellent to see so many software developers in one room.
Right.
I believe this was 2018. And over time, we did a lot of the webinars. We did a few workshops. I think we did another hackathon. And then at the same time, we also worked with other people who were doing, so if you look at, you've been doing a lot of work in this space. Jillian Bethel has been doing some education work, Marvin Colby, also Rhonda Eldridge, we partnered with them as well. And it's just been, whoever's doing stuff, we want to make sure to at least somehow support them, even if it's just, me attending.
Yes.
Or connecting them with other people who would be good for whatever work they're doing. So the goal is also, obviously we have mandates, but it's also like fully community focused. You want to make sure, I think connecting people is the most important thing that we do. Because that's how people grow, that's how people, find where their support will actually come from at the end of the day. So it's largely been based around that. And moving forward, we're gonna be, so I guess a little bit of self-criticism. A lot of the times in this space, we try to just explain, what this technology is, how does it work, which are all important. Right. But at the same time, sometimes we tend to miss, and I know I've done this, we tend to miss like, okay, how is this useful as useful as possible for everyday people? So now that we've done so much work in terms of like teaching and expressing what this is and how it works, now we're trying to move on to the more practical side. So, especially now that there is so much more. So most people, when you think about blockchain, they think about like crypto and like trading and, making money and that
The
kind of
financial
thing.
component.
The financial side. But there's a whole other layer that involves so many different things. Like you have this like decentralized finance aspect that's more than just trading. It's actual banking aspects without the bank.
Right.
There's the art and music side, where people are using it through NFTs. There's the DAOs, which are basically new kinds of organizations that anyone in the world could actually go into, and that could be the future of work. We'll have to go into that later.
Indeed.
But there's so many different aspects, and if we just focus on, hey, this is what blockchain is, this is what crypto is, it's possible that everyone else misses those layers. So actually pushing this kind of education that's more practical, that's more, I guess, user-friendly, where they're actually not just seeing it from behind the glass, but they're actually doing the work and getting into the work. I think that's gonna be where we push our focus to. So right now what we're planning is basically a series of workshops this summer. It'll basically be an intro to Web3. Web3 is basically, the crypto version of the internet, for lack of a better word, the parts of the internet where you can actually use blockchain technology to do different things. So we'll do an introduction. It'll be slightly lean toward developers, but it'll also be for everybody. So whoever is interested, they'll be able to come. It'll be fully virtual. So that'll be in the summer, most likely July, but we'll confirm that.
Right.
But that's where we're at right now.
I do like the practical component that you're introducing now, because a lot of the learning comes with the doing, right? Particularly in the space where it's a nascent industry, and as a matter of fact, there aren't very many experts out there, right? Some people refer to you and me as experts in the blockchain space, but I don't call myself an expert.
We're still figuring it out.
We're still figuring it out,
also,
right?
it changes every day.
Exactly.
So,
the more you learn that you need to learn, right, in order to actually execute. So that's interesting. So I wonder if you could share, do you have any practical examples of blockchain being utilized in the Caribbean outside of the financial sphere at the moment?
So I mean, the biggest thing happening right now is NFTs, right?
Yes.
These non-fungible tokens, which are basically just, tokens that are unique rather than, all right, so if you think about Bitcoin, you think of it's something that's equal no matter where it is. So like if I take $1 from my left pocket and I take $1 from my right pocket, they're still equal in value no matter where it comes from.
That's
so
right.
most cryptocurrencies or crypto assets work the same way.
Right. They're identical, they're fungible.
They're identical. But the NFT is different, so that, $1 from left pocket and $1 from right pocket is not equal. They're actually completely unique, which means you can actually attach a lot of identifiers and signatures and things like that to them. And what most people are using it now is for art. So artists are actually taking their digital art and attaching it to the blockchain using these NFTs, which allows you to actually be able to sell your work, directly to someone who wants to buy it, rather than like trying to get a commission or trying to go through a gallery. It's actually giving you this kind of peer-to-peer, which blockchain at the end of the day is all about peer-to-peer. It's letting you have these peer-to-peer transactions with someone without anyone in between getting in the way of that. So this is, all through last year, there was this big rise of these NFTs. But I would say that is where we're seeing the most action right now, in terms of people actually getting in and getting involved, and these communities building up of like, artists supporting each other, which has been amazing to see.
Yes.
And there are a lot of artists in the Caribbean in general. There's artists in the Bahamas that are using NFTs.
Absolutely.
So it's awesome to see. So I think that is where, and I mean, we're so art and music driven, like all like the Bahamas, but we're such a strong creative culture.
We are.
Across the board.
Right.
Like everything we do is somewhat related to art or music. So having this kind of push into more of the cultural aspects, more of the creative aspects can be a huge opportunity for a lot of people.
Right, of course, and there's always been challenges to monetization when it comes to the arts, right? But I think everyone recognizes the importance of it.
Massively.
Right, so I'm glad that artists now have this outlet, this medium, another way to basically monetize and bring attention to, not just even making money, but also getting broader reach in terms of who can actually see their art and benefit from it.
Yeah, so right? I mean, like obviously the internet is already completely global, but now we have another layer for people to say, oh, this is what's happening in the Bahamas. Oh, these are what Bahamians are doing. These are what Bahamian artists are doing or Bahamian musicians are doing. It's just another level of being able to access the global sphere.
Right.
Because, at the end of the day, we need exports for our economies, and this is actually an export. So
that's right. And so, okay, so now to bring in a lot of these practical applications of blockchain beyond NFTs, looking at things like supply chain management and what have you, anything that requires authentication, verification, but you want to do that in a trustless type manner, that it can be utilized across the board.
Exactly.
But there's some drawbacks, right, to the blockchain and the technology of itself, right? There's some complexity to it, some interesting nuances, and certainly, there's some cost to doing the transactions. Some blockchains are more expensive than others. Perhaps you can speak to us a little bit about some of the challenges you're trying to break through, any barriers you might be trying to break down or overcome as you pursue your mandates.
For sure, and I mean, that's a big part of it too, that we have to remember that there are a lot of issues related to it. blockchains are still very new technology. They're barely over a decade old, which for a technology that's very young, that's like a baby. If you think about, the first computer was this massive thing that took up the size of a room. It was very hard to work with. It made a lot of noise, used up a lot of electricity.
But of course, mainframes.
Exactly. And for many years, that's what computers looked like, and it took a long time for them to even get to a desktop form. But over time, that went. It got more and more compressed. It got easier to use. Now we have these cell phones that have more power than those massive mainframes, which is insane to think about.
Right.
And I think this is kind of where we're still in the mainframe part of blockchain to a large degree. It is moving rapidly. It's getting more and more easy to use, but it's still going to take a while to be, super user friendly with a lot of really good design. And a big issue right now is the fact that blockchains are the amount of transactions you can do. It's scarce, meaning that if you have traffic on a road, the more people that come onto that road, it gets more congested because the road is not infinite, the road is finite. So where most blockchains are right now, they're trying to deal with that traffic congestion, and they're finding different ways to go about doing it. Like they're adding roads, or they're making the roads bigger, or they're adding bridges on top of it. So if you think of I won't go too much into it, but if you think of the technological aspect, they're basically in the middle of increasing the speed and reducing the cost. So
right.
Also the congestion kind of makes the cost to actually transact a bit higher. Right. So yeah, it's going to take a while to be super user friendly so that anyone in the world can easily use it. So technically anyone in the world can use it now, but to make it easier for anyone in the world to use it, the technology does have to evolve a bit more, and that's happening in real time. And it's actually it's something I try to follow every day. But I think within even a year or two, it will have evolved to the point where it's much easier. We're already seeing a lot happening with layer 2, which is basically like the bridges on top of the roads, and that's just going to expand to where it won't cost a dime to actually use these systems. Because the reason why the cost is there is because they have these qualities that are not existing in any other kind of internet infrastructure. They're trustless, they're immutable. You don't have to use, even if you're just sending money, you don't have to use a bank to send that money. You don't have to use PayPal to send that money. It's something that's literally from person A to person B without anything else in between. So that is very powerful, and it is something that a lot of people want, especially in countries where it's just hard to do banking and finance at all. And we're not at that point, but it's not particularly easy for most people to do banking and finance here either. Right. And point of access and things like that. So that's where we're going to, where more and more people will be able to use this very easily, and for many different things.
Indeed, and I guess to your point, the rate at which technological advancement is actually progressing is actually picking up as well. Right, and I think I guess it's safe to say at an exponential rate in terms of the growth and trajectory. I mean, we're seeing that with the growth trends in the blockchain sector. Exactly. Right. Whatever metric you choose to look at, whether it's the overall market size, the number of transactions that are occurring, despite the increase, the higher costs. Right. Exactly. And so certainly over time, we should expect costs to come down and speed to go up, right? No doubt about it. So it's going to be a work in progress continuously. And so in terms of some of those works in progress, is the CBA seeking to develop any of its own courses, educational courses for coding or anything like that, outside of I guess introductory, more like technical stuff? Yeah,
we're still figuring that out. What we've done until now is basically partner with other organizations that already have courses or already in the middle of building out these maybe workshops or actual university courses and whatnot. The answer to that is TBD. We want to do whatever makes the most sense at the end of the day. Right. And to this point, our own course hasn't made as much sense because there are just so many different people and organizations we can work with to do that. But I think in the future that there's definitely a possibility as well, especially when universities want to get more into it, which is already happening to some degree.
Right.
But for now, at least, we definitely want to focus on the most practical aspects possible to make sure people can just dive in and again, do the work. Because you can't really understand this technology unless you actually try to use it before anything else.
Absolutely. I think that's the best approach. Build capacity, build knowledge, and build confidence.
Right.
And then we'll also be able to build our participation in the sector, right?
Because watching someone actually make a transaction for the first time is like mind-blowing.
It is, right?
Because you feel so much better because it's something that you've never done before. Two, it's not even something you would have imagined being able to do. But the more you do it, the more you realize, oh, okay, I can do this, and then I can do more. And then they themselves just get deeper into it and start paying more attention. Absolutely.
So we're going to pick up this very interesting conversation in just a few moments after we take this break. You're watching Jones & Company. We'll be right back.